Welcome to the Lean Out Your Business podcast, a show dedicated to helping entrepreneurs accelerate business growth and simplify success. I'm your host, Crita, and I've been working with businesses for more than 2 decades to help them lean out and optimize what's working while eliminating anything that's not adding value. So if you are ready to get more time back in your day, more profit in your business, and to do business differently, growing and scaling on your terms, let's dive into today's episode. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Lean Out Your Business podcast. Today, we are going to be diving into one of my favorite topics to work with people on in my retreats, and this is identity evolution. And specifically, how do you evolve your identity and level up your business while also remaining true to who you are as a person? And so that's a lot of what we're going to be diving into in today's episode. We're going to look at some examples, and I'm going to share with you some of the epiphanies and takeaways that members of the Lean Out Level Up retreat experienced when we did this activity together recently. If you're looking to level up your business or yourself as a leader this year, it's definitely time for an identity evolution. And if we think about what identity is, it's our sense of self, it's how we see ourselves, it's the things that we believe about ourselves, and it's those conditions and qualities that distinguish us. And there's parts of our identity, like our character, that really make us who we are, and they stay really consistent throughout our lives. But there's other parts of our identity that really grow and evolve throughout our lives and really need to grow and evolve in order for us to step into that next level. And so when we look at this in the context of business, our identity evolves many times over throughout that entrepreneurial journey. And every new level that we grow into requires a next level identity to support that growth. As you set your vision and your goals for a new year or for a new quarter, usually leveling up and growth is some part of that. And when we think about what it's going to take to level up, the things we often think about are the things that we need to do differently. But what we don't always stop to consider is who we need to be and who we need to step into at that next level that we're trying to grow to. We tend to focus on actions and activities instead of also considering the thinking and the mindset and the habits and the behaviors that we need to do, when really it's a combination of all of those things that are really required in order to achieve that next level and the results that we want. So instead of simply thinking about what we need to do to get to the next level, we also want to be considering who we need to become to step into that next level. Because true transformation, when you really want to transform and have lasting change in your business, that does require an identity evolution. You're not going to be able to get to that next level by being who you are today. And I'm going to share a few examples with you to really make this real. We experience a lot of different identity evolutions throughout our entrepreneurial journey. As I go through these, there's many that you have probably already experienced, and there's many more that you are going to experience as you continue forward. And so the first, and this is one of, I think, the hardest transitions, is if you've ever had a job of any sort. I know so many of my clients have transitioned to sometimes very long and very successful careers in corporate, to then going out and starting their own business and taking that expertise and what they did really well for somebody else and turning it into a successful business and something they're doing for themselves. And so that first identity evolution is really moving from an employee to an entrepreneur. And there is a lot that goes with that. If you can remember back to when you first made that journey, the entire way that you look at your schedule in your day, the entire way that you make decisions, the freedoms that you have that you might not have had when you were an employee, that can be really freeing, and it can also be really overwhelming. And so that first initial transition from employee to entrepreneur is a really big one. And so those early days of entrepreneurship, you tend to be all by yourself. You're more of a solopreneur. And so one of the next evolutions is moving from solopreneur to more of a visionary leader, actually starting to build out your team, whether that's full-time employees or whether that's freelancers and a VA and some contract support. Either way, as soon as you start to have other people supporting you, you move from doing all the things, wearing all the hats, to actually having to create a vision and set a vision and be able to not only communicate that to other people, but inspire them to actually implement and get done the things that are needed to make it a reality and hold them accountable. Which takes us to moving from being a doer yourself to being a delegator. When you are that solopreneur and doing all the things, you're doing everything yourself. As soon as you step into more of that visionary leadership and have anybody that is on your team in any capacity, then you have to get really comfortable with delegation. And that can be something that's a little bit challenging for people, especially if you don't have a depth of experience running teams or leading people. You also transition from someone who is a consumer to someone who is a creator, and someone who is influenced to someone who is an influencer. That can be a big shift for people as well, from trying to get your hands on all the information and all the knowledge and all the strategies and all the tactics and just consuming, and really looking for those people who inspire you to really help influence the decisions that you make and the things that you do in your business, to all of a sudden flipping the script, and you're the one who steps into thought leadership, and you're the one who's producing that content that is actually influencing other people. And so that can be a really big mind shift, in addition to requiring you to show up in a very different way. Now, one of the other really significant identity evolutions that we go through as entrepreneurs is moving from being unprofitable to being profitable, right? This is not paying yourself to paying yourself. Those are some really big shifts in business, right? The first time that you have a profitable year, you're both excited and also like, what do I do with this? So what are these taxes that I need to pay? Can I start paying myself? How much do I start paying myself? Then over time, as you are that profitable business owner, there's a lot of evolutions that go through that too. When you look at reinvesting in yourself, reinvesting in your team, reinvesting in your business. So moving from a place of not yet generating profit in your business to becoming profitable, that's one of those really big and exciting, but also overwhelming identity evolutions that happens to us at some point, hopefully very early on in our journey. And then there's the different level ups from a revenue perspective. So there's moving from a 5-figure business owner to a 6-figure business owner. There's moving from finally breaking 6 figures, finally breaking that 100K barrier, and then breaking into multi-6 figures. And that tends to be where people hit another plateau point. And so at that point, then it's breaking through those multi-6 figures and finally getting into 7 figures, which brings you to yet another plateau point. And then it's breaking through those 7 figures and into 8 figures. The one thing that's common across all of these is that every single one of these changes and level ups requires us to grow and evolve our identity, how we see ourselves, and how we show up. So whether you've already experienced all of those, or whether you've experienced a mix of those and there's others that are still on the horizon for you, I'm sure there's a lot of other identity evolutions that you can think of as well. And when I think back to when I first started out as an entrepreneur more than 20 years ago, when I think of the identity that I had in place then, how I saw myself, what I saw for myself, what I thought I was capable of, completely different from where I am today. If I kept that same pattern of thinking in those same beliefs and thoughts, there's no way I ever could have gotten to the stage of business that I'm at today. And so knowing that and looking back and looking at how much you've grown, you can use that to your advantage as you start to look to the future and say, okay, I'm where I am now. And all of those different identity evolutions have gotten me to this point. But in order to get to where I want to go next, it's going to require another identity evolution. So what's it going to take? And so that can be a really powerful activity to do. And I'm going to give you some questions to reflect on to really get yourself in the right mindset to be thinking about that. Before we get into those questions, though, let's talk a little bit about the plateaus that we hit as a business owner. There's many different times that we end up feeling stuck, or we just can't seem to move past a particular revenue amount, right? As I mentioned, we tend to have a sticking point around that 6-figure mark. Then again, around those low multi-six figures, like that 250 to 300 range. Then there's another one around the 5 to 600 range. Then there's another around the 7-figure, right? There's multiple plateaus and sticking points. And sometimes when we hit those, it can feel a little frustrating. We're not seeing growth, or we're not seeing growth at the rate that we want to. And we're often looking at the things that we're doing and trying to change what we're doing, which is an important part of it. But as we talked about already, you want to think about who you need to become as well. And more often than not, if you're feeling stuck or plateaued, it has a lot to do with identity. And what I find is it tends to be that it represents you're in a place where you have a fixed mindset or a fixed identity going on. And this is where we end up seeing ourselves as someone who either can or can't do something. And it ends up feeling very true to us. It feels like a fact instead of something that we have a choice around. And here's some examples of things that either you might find yourself saying that can be an indicator that maybe you're in that fixed identity, fixed mindset, or something that you might hear your clients saying and doing. And it can be really eye-opening to help them see where maybe they need to think about an identity evolution and think beyond the limitations that we so often place on ourselves. The first is if you ever find yourself saying, I'm not the type of person who. And so here's some examples. I'm not the type of person who would ever spend that much on paid ads. I'm not the type of person who's good at leading a team. I'm just not great at team. I'm not the type of person who would ever charge that much. I'm not the type of person who's comfortable speaking on stage. It's just not me, right? For me, it used to be, I'm just not the type of person who does video, right? I've talked about that in some prior episodes. I had a big hang up on video for a very long time. It's been several years now, but it was probably about, 8 to 10 years that I did not do anything video related. And I kick myself now for that, but I had myself convinced. To me, it was a truth. It was a truth that I was not good on video. It wasn't a choice that I was making or an identity where I was seeing myself as someone not good on video. It took growing beyond that and really working on mindset and some of those limiting beliefs that I had to realize I can be good on video. I can be great on video. There's no reason why I can't. It's not that I'm not the type of person who's good on video. I just haven't figured out how to be good on video yet. And honestly, I was never all that bad on video. I just wasn't comfortable with it. And I think that's pretty common, is we just convince ourselves of things that aren't necessarily true. Now, on the flip side, you sometimes will find yourself saying things like, I am the type of person who, and these can also be misleading things that we think are truths. Like, I'm the type of person who always does it this way. I'm the type of person who figures things out. I don't need a plan. I don't need systems. I figure things out. I'm the type of person who trusts my intuition. I don't need data. I don't need metrics. I don't need to create dashboards. I don't need KPIs. I trust my intuition, right? And so in all of those scenarios, I think you can hear in them the danger of very definitively saying, I am the type of person who, or I'm not the type of person who, because we end up limiting ourselves. It's like we hard code these things into our identity. And by doing so, we limit what's possible for us. We slow down our growth, and we can actually keep ourselves from the results that we want most. So how do you evolve your identity and level up while remaining true to who you are? And I think that really just comes down to knowing your values. When I think about remaining true to who you are, it's really staying true to those personal values that you have. The things that you want to evolve are those things that you believe about yourself, the things that you believe about what you're capable of, and ultimately the way that you see yourself. That's where you're looking to evolve your identity, but you can do that in a way that remains in integrity with your values. And so take a moment and think about what that next level looks like for you. And what characteristics and what qualities does a person who runs a business at that level have? Maybe you need to step into someone who charges premium pricing for the incredible amount of value you provide, right? Maybe today you're underpriced and there's some things that you're holding yourself back saying, I'm just not the type of person who charges that much for my services. And maybe it's time to evolve that identity. Maybe it's time to recognize the incredible value that you provide and the premium pricing that should accompany that. Do you need to step into the type of person who is that visionary leader and who has a team supporting you to implement on your vision? Instead of being the one to do everything yourself, is it time to step up and build out your team or grow the existing team that you have and maybe start to delegate a little bit more and trust in your team a little bit more? Do you need to step into someone who unapologetically says no to clients and opportunities and things that aren't a good fit, so that you have the space for the things that are a good fit? And finally, do you need to step into someone who boldly shares their message and their point of view and who's ready to start a movement? These are just some examples. There's many, many more that you can think of, especially if you look at your vision and you look at your goals and just think, who would I need to step into? What type of person would I need to be? What characteristics and qualities would I need to have in order to do this? I had shared that I was going to walk you through some questions that you can reflect on to really help you with stepping into that next level of your identity. And so if you're in the car right now, or maybe you're working out, go ahead and come back to this part of the episode and get your notebook out so that you can actually jot these down and take some time to reflect. We're going to go through an example. And for this example, let's say that you have a goal of $500,000 for the year. Now, maybe that revenue goal is for your entire business. Maybe your business is at a place where you're looking to up level to $500,000 per year, or maybe you're already at that place and your revenue goal is specific to your scalable signature offer. You want to make $500,000 this year from just one of your offers. Or maybe you're already there and you're at the place where you want to make $500,000 from a single launch event this year. Whatever that is for you, or if you have a different target, just go ahead and switch that number out. But what you want to reflect on is, how would your identity need to evolve to become a $500,000 business owner? And so here's some specific questions that you can consider. What does a $500,000 a year CEO do differently than what you do today? How do they make decisions, and what type of decisions do they make? How do they show up? How do they show up for their clients? How do they show up for their online community? What do they do personally, and what do they delegate and have others do in their business? What does their day look like? How do they structure their CEO schedule? How do they serve their clients? What do their offers look like? And what do they personally do? And what does their team do? How much do they interact with their clients and how? What is their business model and how is it different from your current business model? What does their team look like and how does their team work together? What systems do they have in place and how do they run their business? When you reflect on these questions, the final one is, what do you need to let go of and what do you need to step into in order to become this $500,000 a year CEO? This will really help you to start thinking at that next level so you can start to recognize where you have variances from what you do and what you have in place and how you think and approach things today to where you want to be. And that recognition is the first step in starting to make the changes that will allow you to evolve your identity as well as your actions so that you do get to that next level. And we did this exercise at our Lean Out Level Up retreat recently. And here's some of the themes and some of the things that people shared when we did this exact same activity and went through those questions. One of the first things that people shared was they recognized that they needed to hire and they needed to delegate more, so they were not so involved in the small day-to-day activities in the business. They felt like they were spending too much time in the minutia and in the little things when they should be stepping up and thinking more strategically and more at that visionary level. They recognized that the decisions and the activities that they were doing were really keeping them playing small because they were spending so much time doing the small stuff that they didn't have enough time to do that big strategic visionary stuff, which was really an extension of that first realization. And they also recognized that their schedules and their habits did not fully align with those of a 500K CEO, right? One of the things that we did in that activity is we talked about, look at other people that you admire that already run a business at the level that you're trying to get to. And what most of them noticed is that people at that level run lean businesses. They aren't hustling their butt off. They aren't working 24/7. They aren't doing all the things themselves and wearing all the hats themselves. They've got a team. They're very intentional with their time. They're very strategic in what they do. They do less things but better, right? All of the things that we talk about all the time, these things are the characteristics of that CEO who makes $500,000 a year or $1 million a year. The characteristics of a six-figure business owner is somebody who typically works way too hard and does way too much themselves and is spread way too thin, trying to be all the things to all the people. When you think about where you are now versus where you want to go, how are the things that you're thinking and doing keeping you right where you are versus how are the things that somebody at that next level is thinking and doing, allowing them to really be and play all out at that level. And so again, it can just be really powerful to recognize the differences. It's never a negative. It's never a judgment, right? What got you to the level that you are at got you to the level that you are at. That is something that should be celebrated. But if you want to get to the next level, you do need to evolve what you do as well as your identity to get to that next level. So here are my biggest tips for fast tracking that and accelerating making it happen. The first thing is what I shared that we did in our activity at the retreat, and that is look at people who are already at that next level. So think of people who inspire you. Find somebody who has a business model that you want, who structures and delivers their offers in the way that you want, who approaches their marketing and their sales in a way that you respect and resonate with, and somebody who has that blend of work style and work amount with lifestyle and time for things that are important to them outside their business that you aspire to also have. And then someone who shows up for their clients and online communities in the same way that you would want to show up. And now it's rarely only one person who embodies all of those things. So it can be really helpful to identify multiple people who are at that next level. And you're kind of taking a little bit from this person, a little bit from that person. And that's how you really create your next level identity in a way that is true to you. And you're not copying someone else. You're taking inspiration from people who do things that have the same values, the same integrity, the same things that are important to you, and that align with where you want to go and where you want to take the business. And my second tip is, identifying people who are at that level and looking to them can be great and inspirational and all. Absolutely nothing substitutes actually surrounding yourself with those people. So find a community, find a club or a group, join a mastermind, which is my absolute personal favorite thing to do, and immerse yourself in an environment where you are around people at the level that you want to step into. When I think back to the biggest up levels that I have experienced in my business, it came from being a part of mastermind groups. It came from being surrounded by people who were at that level or even sometimes a couple levels higher than where I was and where I wanted to be. Being a part of those conversations helped me not only see what was possible, but to think bigger and to completely shift my perspective. If you can immerse yourself in a space where others are already at that next level that you want to achieve and who embody that next level identity that you want to stop into, nothing will accelerate your results faster, especially when everybody is together aligned around a common goal. So let's recap. The first thing that you want to do is get clear on what that next level actually looks like for you and your business. The next thing that you want to do is think about where your identity really needs to evolve, and do that by going through that series of questions that I asked. Think about somebody who's already operating at that level and what's different about what they do, how they make decisions, how they think, how they run their business, how they lead their team, how they spend their time, what they focus on. Think about how all of those things may be different from what you do today and how you can start to step into more of what that next level looks like. Now, for those of you who have a revenue target of $500,000 in the next 18 months, I'm about to open up the doors to a small circle and exclusive mastermind for coaches, consultants, and thought leaders. who are really ready to step up into that next level. It's by invitation only, so we can curate an amazing group who's really going to come together to not only level up their own business, but to support the other members of the mastermind to do the same. So everyone can not only get there faster, but have the support and accountability of a like-minded group of high-achieving entrepreneurs. So if that's something that you're interested in learning more about, head over to leanoutmethod.com/500 and check out the details and request an invitation to apply. I'd love to see if it's a great fit for you and welcome you into the mastermind. Whatever the next level is for you and your business, really thinking through what that identity evolution looks like is going to be the key to fast tracking your results. I hope you got a ton of value out of this episode, and I will see you again next week. Thank you for joining me for another episode of the Lean Out Your Business podcast. I hope you got a lot of value and actionable insights from today's show, and would love if you take a moment to leave us a review. If you have any questions on today's episode or on how to lean out your business, join us over in our private Facebook community, where every week we do live training and Q&A, and I'd love to have you be part of the conversation. Head to leanoutmethod.com/group to join us. And before you go, be sure to subscribe to the show so you're the first to know when we release a new episode. We'll see you next week.